My name is Felix Brian. I work for Kenya Water for Health organization. And today I'm going to present to you what is an ongoing study. So I'm actually presently out in the field trying to find some more data. And I might not turn my camera on because I'm in a place where there are quite a number of people. Sorry for that. My study on demystifying social accountability as an elite agenda is basically trying to quantify the added value of rural women and youth in the whole social accountability discourse. And so my target areas are largely remote or rural, as you may call it, in the coastal counties of Kenya. So basically, our approach, of course, is to ensure that we put the voices of the people, and in this case, rather traditionally marginalized groups of women and youth at the core. And this is the rationale of the study. So next page, please. Yeah, so basically here, you will see that most a huge population lives in the rural areas, especially for women and youth at 80% and 68% respectively. The focus region is largely patriarchal, water scarce, and of course with a relatively high rural population, which gives a proper representation of what we would classify as challenges being faced by women living in those areas. So we rationalized this study on the understanding that we need to leave no one behind. And of course, with the understanding that here in Kenya, water and sanitation are equally human rights. In Kenya as well, you realize that there are a lot of accountability documents, but then they are quite technical and bulky as well. And so this study is just trying to put in place measures or mechanisms that could help the counties to facilitate more comprehensible measures to engage the rural people especially. And so basically creating frameworks and platforms that are friendly to women and youths, and especially those in rural areas. Like I said, this is an ongoing study, so most of the findings we are yet to find. What we have are from desk review and of course, having worked in the respective counties for quite some time. Next slide, please. Yeah, so why are we focusing on women and youth? And so we recognize that different groups have different unique needs, and from a different program, we figured that while there was a recorded increased participation, there was a considerable decrease in the number of women participating. And so this obviously necessitates actors in the sector to go beyond just looking at the block figures, but rather looking at how can we also disaggregate these numbers we are getting to determine the meaningfulness and the inclusiveness in the participation process. So that is why we think women and youth are a key focus area. There, of course, exist obvious disparities in an otherwise masculine-dominated water sector, where we are saying that women and youth are part of what has been called tokenism and sometimes called insultation. Yes, sorry. I mentioned I'm out in the field. I'm just struggling with community dynamics. If you will forgive me. Thank you. Yeah. And again, we are looking to see that there is a shift in the policy discourse. We want to see that the power relations that inhibit some of the measures to enable inclusive participation are taken care of. We want to elevate the voices of the people we consider marginalized and promote their participation, of course, to eventually realize equity in the whole decision-making process. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yes, so this is just what exists already in Kenya and of course in the respective counties. So of course, public participation is a cardinal value of Kenya as a country, and it goes ahead to claim that sovereignty belongs to the people. And so public participation has been institutionalized in Kenya and of course in the respective policy documents, including the Constitution of Kenya, the public participation guidelines. We have the Water Act 2016, which came about as a result of the water sector reforms. We also have measures to promote participation in the budget process through the Public Finance Management Act. So this is just a framework, and of course, devolution, which decentralized power to the people, leading us to the next slide, where we just want to talk about the local context, what exists, and what we are hoping to try and address by conducting this study. So as you can see, there exists local policies, frameworks within the counties that we are focusing on. But of course, the main challenge has been execution of those policies, or rather, of those existing frameworks. So this study is going to assess the effectiveness of what exists, and if it provides for inclusivity, and even if it does, if it's able to quantify the level of inclusion. And of course, this is by appreciating the value of disaggregated data. So, of course, you will notice if you read the two that they are almost same. The only difference is the name of the county and maybe a brief background check. Next, please. Yeah, so the main objective of this research is to identify opportunities for meaningful women and youth engagement. And this is in the two coastal counties of Kwale and Kilifi. And so we are trying to identify what mechanisms can promote meaningful engagement. We understand that there already exist some mechanisms which from previous engagements have not worked. And that's why we're trying to see what else, what innovative ways can we promote this. I mentioned about existence of legal frameworks, but then with challenges on their effectiveness and their implementation. So we want to try and see how effective are they, and if not, what is lacking, and how can that be fast-tracked. But then again, if we are to talk to county governments to appreciate the role of women and youth, then we need to also quantify the benefits that come with that. And so we want to see that we qualify that there is need for people to consider talking to women and youth when they are doing water sector decision making, obviously because they are the primary contact people. And from discussions that we've had so far, it's recorded that water projects that are being managed by women are the most successful. This is just part of the details that we are getting here in the field. As we move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this was just some of the things we found from an entry meeting, the pre-testing that we did. Of course, various findings like assumptions that men are actually the perpetrators of exclusion, which is might not be entirely true, but could be. And so, of course, this necessitated the need for us to also talk to, in quotes, whoever was quoted as the perpetrator, because when you want to address challenges, you speak to the victim and the perpetrator. So the rest, I think, are just normal recommendations for improvement in the actual data collection exercises. As I ask to move to the next slide, please. And the next slide basically speaks to the main focus that there have been instances of tokenism where women are just allowed to join meetings, for example, but they're not necessarily listened to. And more so because of cultural inhibitions, especially where this study is focusing. So we are looking at this ladder because the aim is to see that if there is to be public engagement, then it has to be meaningful. So this is why we make reference to this ladder, just so that what we are looking at is meaningful citizen engagement. Last slide, I think. Yes, so of course the end goal of this research is not on the shelves, but rather to be used by sector players. And so there are of course measures in place to just make sure that all of this data is made to use. And of course, there are questions of who else is producing this kind of data, because I know for sure that, and then this is why we always do desk reviews, because there are people who have done what we are doing. So what didn't go right? Why are we still producing this kind of data? And so I think this is the main reason why this program lays a lot of focus on uptake and legacy. We possibly are producing this data because what has been produced is on the shelves, maybe, I don't know, but we hope then that this research ends to benefit the people that we desire to see change. And so we are saying that we will not fund good research and hope for the best. So thank you.